We have Elyakim Haetzni with his wife Atty, who helps. She's his right hand. Elyakim is from the people that propelled the settlements of Israel, knows Rabbi Levinger from close, especially in this issue of settling, and will be very honored to hear Elyakim in this important part in history. I would like to say for to memory of this person who's really big, God bless his soul, Levinger, Moshe Levinger. That I was merited to be with them, near him, from the beginning of time, for his work on to Eretz Israel. And I discovered, and before we get into, I would like to give you guys all some sort of description of the background to understand how did it happen. It's going to be almost 50 years that we're trying to go back to the most intimate areas of Eretz Israel, and it's so difficult. If you take a lineup of time of 50 years back in regards to all what was built in the green line, it doesn't make sense. How can it be that after 50 years all this is still in debate? Yesterday was a broadcast in the first station on a place called Elisha near Nevetzuf, and God, they're going to build there, God forbid. And there'll be 40 dunam, there'll be Jewish shown. And the television, the official television, after 50 years, still talks about that it's like Stirner, the German. The Jews are going forward, they're going everywhere. It's impossible to hear such tone. Why is it so difficult for the Jews to accept it? Why do you need somebody like Rabbi Levinger, including the rough sides of him, and especially because of that, to get to what we got to? It is important to say two things. First, what happened in the Israeli society? These things I remember from my own experience, my personal experience. After 1948, which was a bloody war. A percent of all the population was killed in this 6,500, and there was only 650,000 people. If it was happening today, it's impossible to imagine how many people we would have had died today in the same percentage. We can't even imagine this. This shocked everybody, and the idea to put Zionism in brackets started from them, from this particular generation, which was going against this precepts, anti-Zionists, on purpose, the opposite of sense. When we had areas that fell, just imagine, this is in 1948. Do in your heads the analogies, like in Lachish section, Kiryat Gat today is there. All this area that is center, Nehora area. This was Rifra Guber, you know, the mother of all sons that lost sons. She went there voluntarily. There was a call of Ben Gurion to go to the Negev. first to the areas that were beyond the 48 lines, which is something concept. This is 2947, the recommendation of the UN that everybody was dancing in the streets, and this went along with the two states in the West, one Jewish, one Arab, inside the division plan. According to this division plan, we have to remember this is actual. The Arabs didn't forget. According to this, the whole Galilee, Nahariya, should have been in the Arab state. There used to be a joke then that Nahariya, everybody was from Germany, and they used to say, so Nahariya bleibt Deutsch. Nahariya will stay German. It was supposed to go to the Arab country, and Ramle, Lod, Beersheba, Kiryat Gat, all this today that was supposed to be in the Arab state. That was the plan. Ben Gurion had the desire that we understand so good. As he wanted to put people to settle there. And when they wanted money, Levi Eshkol wanted to enlarge the water pipes in the Sharon east of the areas that they took from the Arabs to grow vegetables, and there wasn't enough water for that. He asked some more money, as so Ben Gurion, no, this is going to Chavel Achish. Mapam said, there you don't have to settle because it's beyond the borders of 48 of the UN. Nothing has changed since. Ben Gurion looked for volunteers. They were calling them newcomers. Where's the Eretz Israel, the working one? Come and settle all these areas. The youth, the pioneer youth, where are they going? There wasn't any. It wasn't anywhere to be seen. They settled the Negev with people that were newcomers who came off the plane, and they put them there. They didn't have a choice. Thanks to them. It wasn't like after a month, whoever there was in Yerucham and Dimona, week, month, year, could have gone somewhere. They brought him there, but he could have moved. And all the little Moshavim and all of them stayed and did it and became the settlers. But from this amazing settlement that we have all those famous songs and we teach about it, they're the big people. There wasn't another generation. There were the heroes. We cannot forget this. We're not talking about 1967. We're talking about 1948. All this period, everything was going downwards. The world also changed. We know today, and we see. So there was war. We won. Judea and Samaria is ours. It's the same way like United States took, Arizona, and the change in Europe after World War II. In Europe, Poland moved. Lemberg is in Ukraine, and the Breslau, German, is now Polish, Wrocław. But after that, the world changed. Suddenly, it changed in that today you can't change borders so easily. Change in a way that the idea of the nationalities of a national state, the idea of a national state is going further away. With the Americans, it was never in existence because it was people that coming from all over the world, and everything is about the Constitution and the law. In Europe, if you talk about this belongs to the Jewish nation, we have roots, so we have our historical. The youth cannot relate to it. Because in Europe, erasing all the borders, and there's no demarcations anymore for nationalities. And this is the insurance policy, so there won't be another Holocaust. This is the way they talk. They think the relevant ideas are, we're going behind like 100 years. We're coming and saying in the lingo that this land belongs to the Jewish nation. If you research this, and it should be researched, you'll find that the whole idea of nationality and nation, they got from the Bible, from us. They got this, they brought in absurd, and now it's throwing it away. And again, the nation of Israel is different in the way that we are different. We are not going to go forward, or we're not going to go backwards, depending on beyond that there is a Jewish nation. We don't want to make it like different. We want it clearly to ourselves. If other people want to give up their nationality and their specialness, for the Israelites, it's not going to make a difference. If you have a kippah or not a kippah, the nation of Israel is different. This differentness, is bringing us in a crash mode with everybody else in the world. With Jews, they want to be like everybody else. Because in every generation, there's Jews that want to become like everybody else and work against their brothers and sisters. All this came to really total extenuation after the Six-Day War. The non-Jews, it was Jerusalem, and we have to understand this. We took over Jerusalem, and we it was comfortable for the non-Jews. First Jerusalem, the Judea and Samaria is the tail of the cat. The main cat is Jerusalem. Because of that, those Jews, they want to be like everybody else. They don't have a consensus about Jerusalem. They're also already dividing Jerusalem. And the division of Jerusalem is one of the lie of a peace process or a peace agreement. Without division of Jerusalem, this is the main issue. In an international view, it's more sensitive to build one house in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem, than 100 in Kiryat Arba. And in truth, Netanyahu is very, very much freezing Jerusalem. He's especially freezing Jerusalem. And the lie is so big that he says, Jerusalem on my highest concern. Everything else he's willing to give, and he's building everywhere else and freezing Jerusalem. What do we do when this is the world and this is the situation that we're dealing with? This is the situation in the world. And Hashem, his destiny gives us a gift like this, and gives us something that we wished for so many generations and thousands of years, and it drops into our hands. And all the areas of the Bible, all the areas where something, the saga of the Bible, the Jewish nation happened, it's in our hands, and we call ourselves Zion, and this is the concept of Zion. We're Zionists, and no, let's do what is requested of us. And here comes the weakness. And here I have a story for you. It used to be in the midst of us in Kiryat Arba, the writer, God bless her soul, Nomi Frankel. She used to be, she was in the middle of the elite, the highest elite of Rabin and Alon and all the famous people. She came from Bet Alpha, and then she lived in Gush Dan, and she used to be part and parcel of the establishment of the most internal one in the Six-Day War. And she knew from firsthand, she heard from everybody, she probably heard it from Rabin, about the awaiting time that the Egyptian army was, there's panic in the country, what's going to happen? May 1967, Rabin is going to Ben Gurion, to Sde Boker in the Negev, and Rabin used to be the Minister of Defense, to really see what to do. And Ben Gurion says to him as follows: God forbid that IDF will attack. We're not allowed to attack. Let's accept the situation. Why? Ben Gurion says, generals we have, the generals will occupy, that's no problem, but I know the situation of the nation and the leadership, the way it is right now. If in this situation this historical treasure will fall into our hands, it'll be a disaster. With this leadership, it's better to wait to another generation. With this leadership, we have to wait for some better leadership, and this is not going to work. A disaster. And depressed, Rabin went back home and accepted and had a nervous breakdown. This is the story according to Nomi Frankel. Why would something like this happen? With my wisdom after seeing this and looking to the past, I have my own interpretation. Ben Gurion had the experience that he called the youth to go to the Negev, to go to this new Moshavim that were already with people from, that had like newcomers. The Fadayun, the Arab Fadayun, were killing with them, and it says, come, volunteer to live with them together, to help them in agriculture and so forth. The people of the Moshavim. And besides a very small amount of people, nobody came. So he imagined that if the Arabs are not going away and we're occupying this and nobody will come to settle and nobody will move, it's going to be a disaster, culturally, historical, and etc. What Ben Gurion didn't understand, and I learned that from my meeting with Rabbi Levinger, he didn't know that there is a center of Rabbi Mekaz Harav. I didn't know there was something like this. I knew that Rav Kook was great, was no longer alive. I didn't know about Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda Kook, Mekaz Harav area in Jerusalem. I didn't know about his influence on the whole youth generation. It was world that, to people like me that lived in Cholon and then later in Ramat Chen, I had no clue. It was very secular society. I didn't know. It's not that I didn't know about the importance. I didn't even know it existed. This Ben Gurion didn't know. And in retrospect, we can say, and we're standing on another success, thank God, without evil eye, that of this particular force, mysterious force that we had. So like somebody that has a car and he has four, transmission, and he has a fifth transmission that has all this force. This is the secret that we didn't know. All the establishment didn't know, but this ability. And I don't want to talk about myself, but I have to say that in the 6-Day War, when I heard the Hebron was occupied or released, or it hurt me like an electric shock. And I said to my wife, he's here and she can vouch for that, we're going to Hebron. I had to entice her and the kids, and I promised them every year snow and all kinds of things. And on the way to home, the Tech Jabari, there used to be this big hill, and the kids were very excited So I told them that they can live close by, and then there was the heated of the earth, and there was no snow, and Oslo took away my little hill, and meanwhile they all are patriots of Hebron. Anyway, I don't want to talk about myself, but why Hebron? We know why Hebron today, because that's where it all started from. And I looked for with whom, and the way I described this in global, there wasn't in my society that no one that was interested in doing something like this, to go to Hebron. And I have to say, the Hebron today is Paris compared to what Hebron used to be then. And they used to have grenades all the time. The dirt, the rats. What can I say? It's a place that was not from this century. They used to be in Hebron. Maybe I used to speak with Passover in 1968, the Passover Eve. When I was there, I spoke with the person who owned the hotel. How many cars were in Hebron? Less than 10 cars in Hebron. 1968. That's nothing. A city from the Middle Ages. But myself and of course Rabbi Levinger, we saw the city of King David. They saw the street of the Shuhada, the people that give themselves up. We saw all these things from King David's time. Nobody understood this. In my search for who's going to go to Hebron, I don't remember in which circumstances I found Rabbi Levinger. A little bit before that, in my work around Kfar Etzion, we met. Kfar Etzion was not founded by a voluntary act of the, government. The government of Israel didn't decide to go back to the Kfar Etzion. It sounds sensible, but it wasn't their decision. They decided not to go in. And here I start to touch on what Rabbi Levinger, in his type of personality, that gave the push. There were other idealists in this group. What was in him? Why is he called the father of settlement? Because we were in a situation that, and forgive me for this, it was all, even Kfar Etzion, the historiography of official of Kfar Etzion does not like this particular part of the past, and usually kind of doesn't talk about it. But the truth is, the Mafdal, the Mizrahi, and Rabbi Moshe Shapira, Zal, he goes from the left at Yossi Sarida type. We're against. Moshe Dayan was against. Alon was for. It was very difficult to get a majority to go back to Kfar Etzion. It's very important to know, what are we going to do? Since this particular test, this issue comes back and like a motif that keeps on, a song that reruns, that leads all this like saga opera. Initiative from the people is illegal. It's civil disobedience. Civil means you're not using force, you're not hitting, you're not breaking, but you are saying that this law is illegal, is so against morality. It's It's against internal truth that I'm going to ignore it and I'm willing to accept any punishment. And call me whatever you want to call me and put me in jail. And if you charge me, this is a doctrine that they teach in schools, of law schools, as part of the democracy. That if in a democracy you have a majority that decides a law that your conscience cannot live with, then you say, I am doing like Socrates, and it started with Socrates, and I disobey this law that is illegal in my eyes, and I accept the punishment willingly. And even when I accept the punishment, I have honor to the law, but I see it as illegal. And this is the situation that the people that loved Israel, or Zionist people that believes in Zionism and sticks to the heritage of Israel that is in Israel, you can cut up Israel outside. It doesn't work. They tried that, the reform, to take out Zion out of the Siddur. Who needs Zion? Frankfurt said that we don't need Zion. But now whoever is trying to do that, and in a law on enactment, blocks the way of mine, of a Jew, to Eretz Israel, it's illegal. And you have to go against it, and all the concept, against this concept, and all the repercussions I take on myself. If no one really concluded this or organized it in some sort of a way, but that was the attitude. And thanks to it, we're here, sitting here. And whoever denies it is lying and faking the history. And it started in Kfar Etzion in simplicity. They prepared an illegal coming up on the ground. It was illegal because it was not allowed. Yesterday, somebody reminded me at Rabbi Levinger house that there used to be an enactment by the army that a Jew is not allowed to sleep in the occupied areas, without a license and without permission for the night. So every illegal stay was, illegal, and so we disobeyed. And this was led by Rabbi Levinger. I would like to say something about his type of personality. He was an anarchist, God forbid. He knew to be very loyal to the government. He was a very normative person who raised a family, very normative, not rebel or an astronaut, not at all. He knew how to speak with ministers and be very diplomat when needed, and to give up when needed, to be flexible. But in two issues, you saw somebody different. There's a Rabbi Levinger, and inside of him there's another Rabbi Levinger. And God forbid when the other one comes out from the inside. When you spoke about Eretz Israel, the holiness of Israel, and the honor of the Jewish nation. Not his honor, but the honor of the Jewish nation. Not publicity, not money, nothing. But the honor of a Jew. In this issue, you would have seen somebody else totally scary that could yell that the walls will shake. Between us, when we had our arguments, it's okay. But it was the same against people of, power. That this person was very quiet and polite, suddenly becomes a different person. To me, when I'm thinking about it now, it reminds me of a prophet, an old type of prophets. when it's in relationship to an issue of his mission. He stands in front of the king, in front of the government, like a very strong mountain, and speaks like a foreign force. This is how he would present himself, and people were fearing him. It was not a game. We know today that teach in public relations that Herzog went to yell, went to say this, in what voice, when you make a loud voice. No, nobody taught him. It all came from inside. He had his internal force. And in reality, the state of Israel, the government decided to create Gush Etzion as an army base. In the beginning, with the lie. They came through the window. That's the way, not the main way, not the front door. It was through the window. It was more fun to go through the window because that's the way. That's our national thing. After they decided it's going to be with an army base or something, because that it won't be, we won't be occupiers. We are settling. If I'm an occupier, I can't settle in my land. It's not mine. Am I even an occupier or not? Slowly but surely, there was a need to put them into the rut. They didn't want to go into this rut of settling. No government in Israel. Everything from down, up, or below. After the decision about Kfar Etzion was decided, we got to the issue of Hebron. What was the most fresh in the memory of the nation was 1948. After that, 1929. But Hebron was a problem because there were two places. And in truth, in Kfar Etzion, there was more blood shed than in Hebron. Close to 200, and in 1929 it was only 60 that died. But there was the entire population of Hebron was destroyed in 1929. Only few tried to go back, and they were taken out by the British in 36. Another intifada in 36 to 39, and the place was empty of Jews until 67. And according to the government, the Jewish government, they would have stayed that way, empty of Jews. And they never dreamed about Jews coming back to Hebron because there was a trauma, dreadful trauma from all the Jewish families that were in Hebron for generations and generations. None of them came back. There's one family in Hebron, but most of the families, the Sephardi families, the Chabadni, none of them came back. This trauma of this butchering, if you read what happened there, you understand why. It was so hard and dreadful. So you had to start from scratch, beginning. The renting of this hotel, secretly, using the fact that the Moshe Dayan was the defense minister that was the czar of the settlements. Nobody went against his words, not the government. Whatever he said was happening. He dug in a cave, and he used to be a fan of archaeology, and he didn't really follow the rules, and everything went to his pocket, and there was a fallout, and he was buried under, almost died, and he almost died in the hospital from this, and he was out, and he wasn't in the issues. And in Passover comes the ad or the information news that Jews came back to Hebron to Passover. They're in a hole there. The act was led by Rabbi Levinger. In reality, the government was put in front of facts. To be fair, we should, and a historian, they might find that they will write something else. They will say that in the world in 1967, and that especially no government in Israel could get in through the front door to Hebron. It's just, and in my introduction, I spoke about this. Couldn't get in, and was needing two things. That if there is a pressure from outside that pressures you inside, she had to put from the internal to push back to straighten it. Either you have it or you don't. It's not Russia that you could, in a way that is not real, to bring people out that will yell and will make a performance of a demonstration. Secondly, a historian could say, inside, internally in ministers, they had two forces. One, everything that a Jew wants in Israel, and the other one is the fear and all this exile type of mentality. For example, the merchant minister was Pinchas Sapir. Rabbi Levinger provided him with they wanted to create in Kiryat Arba an industrial area. So they asked him for a meeting, and he asked, okay, what do you want? Just put it in writing. So what a Jew does, they makes a list and says, I double it by 3, maybe he'll give me third, right? That's a typical way of making a list. So you ask, and if he gives half, we'll be happy. So he brings the Rabbi Levinger and his people to 5 in the morning in his office, and they come 5 o'clock in the morning, and he says, "You got everything. I agree to everything, and you could go. Goodbye." And they're just shocked. And Rabbi Levinger says, "It's all okay." Rabbi Pinchas, let's open a bottle of wine and a few words. Let's celebrate. You're giving us all our list. So they sat and talked. And then it says, ask the minister, you are known as somebody who goes against settlement. He was the Rebbe of Yosef Sarid. So make the calculation in your head. So Sapir answered him and says, this is Hebron. If I'll go up to heaven and they'll ask me, Hebron, I'm against. It's not good. He hated Arabs. He was used to be in his youth in jail by the British with Arabs, and since then he aversion to Arabs. Polish have been something against Arabs and their kishkas. I don't know what it is, but this whole ideology was there. In Hebron, there was something in Yossi Beilin, in his generation, doesn't even exist anymore, but in that generation I speak about, 1968, they had divisions inside of them. So if there wasn't the force from down, the outside pressures were going, and the opportunity, this historical opportunity, the going back of the Jewish people going back to Eretz Israel, to the heart, would have been gone. And the next time would be another 2,000 years. And I'm not sure even the youngest here would be there in 2,000 years from now. And I'm talking about people like me. So it would have gone. But because from down came the force and the pressure, and in that generation, there was something that spoke, and through this cracks came Rabbi Levinger. For instance, I'll give another example. The burial area where Rabbi Levinger was buried, he's the one who renewed this area. Without him, there was no... They prepared for us, the government in Kiryat Arba, a certain area for burial in Kiryat Arba. And we ask, what are you making an area? This is for you, for your burial area. And we said, the Rabbi Levinger says, no way, in your wild dreams. Our burial is the Jewish area, the old Jewish burial. It's from the Middle Ages, from really old times. The Arabs called it the ground of the Jews. Even if you want to call, I have a burial place here, be your guest, you can use it. We're not. So then happened the issue that, the incident that a little baby, Avraham, the son of Sarah Nachshon, Baruch Nachshon, he's a very famous painter from the first in Hebron, and Kiryat Arba was his dad. It was in a crib death. And Avraham got his circumcision in Me'arat HaMachpelah. It's a story within a story. He was got it, but just remember, I have to continue that story. What is more, Jew have to get, you couldn't get more than 7 steps into the Machpelah cave. For how long? Since the Mamlukim in the 13th century until 1967. This is how long we could not do this. A Jew could go beyond the 7th. Only the honorary people. Her grandmother took her as a girl to there, and she tried. After the 3rd step, the person of the Waqf 40 stopped her. 7 steps just the honorary Jews could get, and only outside. So according to the people of the government of Israel, when we took it out and we won the war, the minister Dayan decided there's no more step, the 7th step. He blew up those steps. And but the Jews and the Christians in this cave, they'll be tourists, and they'll have like special hours, and the Waqf will control the cave. It's his, like Harabait, Temple Mount, and Jews and Christians will get some hours to visit, visitation hours. And Rabbi Levinger, it's not going to happen. So what do? Disobedience. A circumcision buried in the Machpelah cave. Comes the main, no way, you bring wine to the mosque. Oh my gosh. And they said, okay, there'll be grape juice. No, it's not going to happen. And disturbances and arrests and weddings. I saw a wedding like this. The groom came in a raincoat to the cave, and also the bride came with a jacket, and everybody came like the chuppah all folded, and everything was in secret, and each one came by themselves, and suddenly they all congregated together in one of the rooms of Abraham, and suddenly they all take off their coats and their costumes, and here you have a bride and all the things that she comes in, and the groom and the Rabbi Levinger, and they do a wedding. And in the middle of the ceremony comes the governor, the army governor of Hebron, a Mapan person. What is this? And everybody, shh, it's the middle of the wedding. They stood there 20, 30 years, and 30 people, and he's screaming, and they're like, shh. And meanwhile, they're saying really quickly the whole wedding is finished, and it was in Marat HaMachpelah. What are you doing here? How dare you? It's a mentality. I remember I used to like Persian carpets. They had all kinds of Persian carpets. So me and my wife went, and I see this Persian carpet, and I wanted to know what kind it is. So I bent over to look on the other side. Here comes don't touch it. And I saw in the government panic. And I say, what are you panicking? You're the army governor. What are you afraid of? What will happen? It's a mentality. Rabbi Levinger drove them insane in the cave, and women would pray to him. Let's get them by force. Young people, there used to be some Gedalia, went through the walls, and there used to be like a constant war that didn't stop. That these tourists refused to be tourists. If Avraham had the older was Ishmael, but Yitzchak, and we are coming from Yitzchak, and we are, I don't know, one Kahanist that demanded that the Arabs now will go to the 7th step. No Jew demanded that. We wanted equal rights, but the government didn't want to give that. And Rabbi Levinger led this disobedience, the civil disobedience, until the point that we got to look almost an equal status in the cave that allowed sort of an honorable coexistence. He's the one who led to this. And in this war, we had this circumcision of Abraham, the Nachshon's son, and he died a crib death. Now, the body was in Jerusalem. And somehow the government found out that Rabbi Levinger is planning to bury him in the old burial. There was no people settled in Hebron were in Kiryat Arba. It was already Kiryat Arba at that time. There wasn't anybody in the government house. Hebron was, but they built in Kiryat Arba 240, and we added to 400. No, but the first initial decision in the Knesset was for 250. So they approved 240. I built them, so I know. Kababchi built in Sair, and they were my subcontractors of mine. And that's from Khalfon, you're going so fast, build 400, but they won't approve it. So I'm gonna go in. Mr. Khalfon, you're getting into trouble. I'll tell you why. Because when I wanted to come and settle and make Aliyah to Hebron, I had my wife there, and we came to look at the apartment, and we saw that one of the room was like rounded, and the next one was this way. And we came from a villa from Ramat Chen, and my wife says, "Look at this." I told him, I said, the average is straight. But I said in my heart, if I ever meet the contract that he does, I'm going to give him my words. This is the Kababchi from Chalchol. Talk to him. Now that I caught you. You already caught me in Sanur that I built a synagogue there, but then we did different things. Kol hakavod to you. So now, well, at that point, the interesting part is that these people, the government administration, came to Rabbi Levinger and to the sages of Kiryat Arba and said, there's a halacha that if the death is in Jerusalem, you're not taking him out. So they came, but also in Kiryat Arba came there's not much industry in Kiryat Arba, but in Gemara there's a lot of sages. So they opened a few Gemarot and said, besides Hebron, and it's truth. In Hebron, if you're in Hebron, that you arrived. You arrived. You don't need to go more. So in short, there was a little group of people to bury the child in Hebron. The army blocked the road, the main road, to the glass area there in the summit of Hebron, and they put the truck of Arab truck on, and there was a group of Kiryat Arba people. And Rabbi Levinger said to stop the theater antics, and this little body, I don't know what it was, they put on the floor, on the mother. She's a big tzaddik, Sarah Nachshon. She stood there, and the father. And there were a few people. On the other side, there were Arabs that couldn't understand what was going on to the Jews, because the rabbi in the Arab thing, why the Jews will stop themselves to bury a person in the Jewish cemetery. This didn't make sense. Took a few years to understand this head. But then they didn't understand. They still thought that we are normal. So they stood there and just observed a whole day on the whole entire, road this is civil disobedience in its own way. And the Arabs couldn't understand. And who broke first? The government. And they allowed the burial at night. And the baby was buried at night, and it's on his tombstone. And they stayed a few nights. They were afraid that the government will come and take him out. And here is another example that you had to break the barrier. And after that, every time I come there in the burial, like the day of there's a memorial. One time there was the president and the whole entire IDF in this little burial place, that the Jews are there and they're burying because of the civil disobedience, the first one that Rabbi Levinger led. If he didn't do that, the president wouldn't have come. And all this honorary IDF thing, it comes from down, this force. If you are a democratic, there wouldn't be a civil disobedience, a grassroots that came from all the way up. Nobody funded it. It's not an NGO that was from Norway funded. It was from the roots, from history, from the depths of the hearts of this simple nation, leading this idea of Rabbi Cook ideas and philosophy, led by Rabbi Levinger, were the torchbearers. Another example. How did the Jews come back to the city of Hebron? How is it possible that we have people in Hebron, all the other cities, out of bounds right now for Jews? And for this, we hope they'll stay. His wife, Miriam, put this effort. This is the leadership of his. In the middle of the night, they came in 1979. They snuck to inside Beit Hadassah. What is Beit Hadassah? Beit Hadassah was a hospital before, in 1929, before the big butcher. Next to it was the Beit HaRokeach, and when we came, we found, contrary to all the other areas that were occupied by Arabs, Beit Hadassah we found empty. But Beit HaRokeach was also empty. We asked the Arabs, and the next to it was Jewish rabbis was occupied. So we asked, why is this empty? They said, we hear at night the screams of the tortured, and the pharmacy person, they murdered him, they raped the daughter and then murdered her. They cut the hands of the mother and she died in Jerusalem, and that was the pharmacist. And we came to the government and said, look, this is standing empty. We're not asking to take out any Arabs from the house. So there's somebody is sitting from since 1929. You know, it was Jewish because it says on the rock where there was the mezuzah, but it's empty. Why not to bring back to the laughter of children into a place of sadness and torture and scary and panic? No. So what do we do? If you're a citizen that follows the law with like blindly, so that's it, you finished. So Hebron is gone. Here, that's the point. This is where the leadership of Rabbi Levinger, if this is it, we do this. So came at night, women, children, and snuck into the empty house. And this is like a destruction of tens of cities, the dirtness and the rats. There was no water. There was no running water. It's impossible to imagine. A whole year they were in this place. The Arab neighbors helped. They felt sorry. When they wanted to bring to them food, they tried to stop it. So they always had reasoning. So the third army, the Egyptian army, you provided food, so they couldn't stop. So food they were able to bring at the end. And there was a tradition that every Shabbat, every Friday night, the men that their wives were in this Bet Hadassah will come by walking to Marat HaMachpelah, pray their Kabbalat Shabbat, and come walking from Marat HaMachpelah to Beit Hadassah, stand at the entrance. The women come from outside, and they can see one another. No woman, if she could get out, she can't come out, and whoever comes out cannot go in. And Menachem Begin time. He was the prime minister, the Likud government. And they would do Kiddush, and they could speak a little bit, and then the men went back to Kiryat Arba, and the women went back inside to this hell. They were amazed that they didn't get hepatitis or any kind of, there was no windows, nothing. On this, Arafat knew God cursed him, and he sent a special killing group that came to Hebron and situated itself. There used to be stores across. And Friday night once, when there were like about 100 or 200 people around the entrance from the outside for this kiddush, they threw to this people in semi-automatic fire. 6 were killed, many injured, and grenades. This bloodiness, after this they allowed the entrance to Beit Hadassah, and Jewish presence in Hebron came back because of this death. Jewish life came back to the city of Hebron. Same way like we're sitting here. Ezra Weizmann was, I'll get into Ezra Weizmann's story. I'm getting to him. I say the same way we're sitting here. How did we get to here? This amazing 3 killed, murdered kids were killed. This is the price as a Weizmann. Another story. There used to be a synagogue, a very old synagogue, in the Jewish quarter. It was about Avraham Avinu. It was built by the Spanish exiles in the beginning of the 16th century. This story, like a fable, there was a Yom Kippur, there was no tent for the minyan, and somebody mysterious came and disappeared, and afterwards came in a dream and said, "I'm Avraham Avinu. I came to conclude the minyan," and that's why they called it Avraham Avinu synagogue. And it was destroyed, was burned. There was an old man that took out burning, and he was burnt from it, and his burial, that he wanted this Sefer Torah will not, when the Jews will be in Hebron. And so I wanted to rebuild it. And what did we find there? We found an empty area, flat, dry area for drying, the poop of like sheep and all kinds. There was also another area for people, like a urinal, and it was just, we found there. So we asked the Arabs. So he showed us a certificate in Hebrew that Muhammad Abdallah, whatever his name is allowed to have in the synagogue area of Avraham Avinu, and the administration, the army administration, wrote that. Jabari, who was the mayor, offered the people to build the synagogue there, half and half. He will pay half of it because he didn't have enough. He proposed. And I said, no. We'll put it to Susia or other areas. It's not important to us. So what do you do? So you break the law. Then he led a prayer, a national prayer in the wall, in the streets. Very busy street. Something that caused many demonstrations and problems with the Arabs every day. And the government really wanted to make the Arabs happy because they wanted peace and quiet. And he brought, disturbances. There was Jewish disturbances, and he was this problems. There was a very tall building in the Jewish ghetto that was like the Pisa Tower. Very dangerous to not get into it, to even stand next to it. It was so. In his leadership, young people got in and took over this building, and there were like Middle Ages, the army around, and is trying to occupy it from outside, and from the inside they drop all kinds of like boiling water and stuff, beatings, injured. It came to a situation where the army, like the government, it started to a point. There was fear that there's going to be a fight between the Jews and the Arabs in the market, between the vegetables. And that was the end of the days of labor. In 1977, they allowed Peres and Rabin to build the Avraham Avinu synagogue just for tourism, not to use. Okay, we said yes, no problem, we'll just, fine. And they started building. And then Begin came to power, and the first thing that the minister of is to visit Hebron. And we were naive and very, we accepted him, like, oh wow, raise your heads, the biggest hero is here. And we bring him and show him, and look, we're digging in the area and we find the remnants of the Jewish. And he says quietly, say here and there, you digging here, problems. The next day, you can continue. The next day, they stopped us. They forbid us to continue in Avraham Avinu synagogue. And then we had another revolt of sorts. There was a professor of physics that came from Russia. He led, and they said, you're going to go to jail. We're going to sue you in army. I'm coming from Siberia. And he went to jail. And until we went in, and the leader was Rabbi Levinger. The synagogue was not built. And it was built, and I was happy to see how they returned the burnt, we weren't sure that we can see in our days. And it wouldn't have happened if there wasn't the force and the power from down. It wouldn't have happened to see. And the one who led this was Rabbi Levinger. I didn't tell you how he stood by himself in front of the Heishe market. 3 months, non-stop. 1 month, 2 months before the Intifada, the first Intifada, he saw it happening in advance. How he warned, he had senses to, warn in advance, this will be a murder of a Jew. I remember he went to the army administration. I came with him. Why? Because here they're going to be a Jewish people, and our own Gross was murdered a couple of days later because of the security issues. And he felt it. He felt the need to raise Nachala and grow this organization, Nachala. And he was behind the last one in Kikar Rabin that changed the whole national spirit and prevented, but I feel like it's prevented the disaster of having Herzog and of the other side, which is says that they're going to do everything that America wants. So we were saved in the last days of Levinger, Rabbi Levinger. He was leader. God, bless his soul.